shift to a conversation on trust. The trust we place in financial systems every day. Banking is personal, emotional, deeply human. And today we explore how AI can strengthen that humanity rather than replace it. Please welcome Greg Fahey, CTO of Services, Backbase. Once again, give it up to Greg Fahey, CTO Services, Backbase, to speak about making banking more human, building world's first banking AI platform, Responsible.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Greg Fahey. I'm the CTO for Services at Backbase. Backbase is a fintech that's based in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. We also have a large center here in Hyderabad, India. We have a great group from the team here today. Good to see you all, and thank you for supporting the hackathon that we ran yesterday as well. So Backbase works with banks around the world, around 150 banks, to deliver a digital transformation for the customers of the bank and for the employees. So we work to improve the experience that you have when you're using the mobile app of a bank, when you're using the web application, also when you're calling the call center or visiting the branch and working with an employee of the bank who's helping to service you. Here you can see some examples of customers that we work with here in the region, including HDFC here in India. So in the last 20 or 30 years, you've had these major waves in technology transformation across all industries. The internet era from the late 90s, then mobile in the 2010s, and now we have this new AI era. And I really want you to think about AI in these terms as a new technology wave that is touching every industry and causing us to transform once again. One of the interesting things, though, about this particular wave is that instead of just focusing on one channel or on one persona, like the customer of the bank in this case, or maybe the customer of a supermarket chain or an e-commerce website, it's touching all areas of every business. And in the banking world, that means it's touching marketing, affecting how we find new customers for a bank. It's touching sales, how we promote new products, whether it be a credit card for a consumer, a micro loan for a small business. It's touching operations, how the bank makes itself more efficient to better serve customers. And of course, it's touching compliance, which always plays a role in banking. And so at Backbase, where we provide solutions for banks that touch all of these areas of their operations, we're also considering how AI can bring change and can help every area of the bank and every persona in the bank, from a person who has yet to become a customer of the bank, who is a prospect, someone who is a customer of the bank and wants improved service and new types of servicing, from all of the people that work in the bank that serve you as customers of the bank, and also the people that you don't see that are doing the paperwork in the back, very laborious, time-consuming operations. They're the reason why your loan approval might take 2 weeks. We want to help them do their work more efficiently so that you can get your loan approval in a few hours or in a few minutes. So we're looking at the entire space of work within any bank globally. And we always take this approach with any technology, but particularly with AI. We don't just want to say, hey, we have this cool new tech. How can we sort of shove it into everything and make everything faster and easier? We actually want to understand the work that is being done, whether it's by a customer or an employee of the bank. If you're a fan of Lean and the Toyota production system, you might know this as going to the Gemba, actually going and looking at how work gets done, understanding it first, then deciding how you can apply your technology to that type of work to improve it. And I really like this quote. This quote emerged on the internet, maybe on Blue Sky or LinkedIn or something like that. And it was a bit of a reaction to Sora coming out. The Sora is an AI video generator. And I think this really perfectly describes what we want to achieve with AI, right? That we want it to do our laundry and our dishes so that we can do the fun stuff. So what does AI mean for a customer of the bank? How is it changing how we deliver services to end customers? This is a fairly typical view of the customer population of a lot of industries. It's especially true in banking. So Over here on the left, you have the vast majority of customers. Every one of us in the room is probably somewhere in this area, right? Where you have a regular banking relationship. You're in the majority of the population in terms of your personal wealth, and you make a small amount of money for the bank. And in some cases, the bank might even lose money servicing you and your business. And all the way at the other end of the scale, you have this very small group of customers that have a large amount of wealth, and they make a lot of revenue for the bank. Maybe tens of thousands or perhaps even millions of dollars of revenue for the bank from one customer in some cases. And what we had from the previous wave, if we think about those three waves, the internet, mobile, and AI waves, the mobile wave brought us very nice mobile applications from our bank. Hopefully you have one. If you don't, send them to talk to us. But all of us like to self-service, right? We don't like to call the branch anymore. We don't like to go into a storefront. We would like to pull out our phone and be able to do everything on our mobile phone. Now, the customer at this end of the spectrum also does everything on their mobile phone, but in a different way. They have a WhatsApp relationship with a very well-paid private banker or relationship manager. So there's human to human, send a WhatsApp message, hey, I'd like to move a few $1,000s from this investment account into that one, or into my cash account so I can buy some champagne for my yacht trip next weekend. So there's this really strange dichotomy, right, where we get very nice functionality from our mobile apps here, from the mobile age, and this very high value customer of the bank actually sends messages on WhatsApp. And we're seeing this interesting shift at the moment. We have people in this segment who are saying, I would like to have a conversation with my bank. So you have chatbots emerging in almost every banking application around the world, right? And that's happening because the level of service that was provided here, which was very expensive to do with humans, is now actually affordable for a bank to operate with an AI-driven chatbot, right? There's big challenges around that, like making sure that the chatbot says the right thing to the customer and does the right thing on behalf of the customer. But this is a problem that's being solved at the moment. The other interesting thing is that these customers over here, who always had to call their relationship manager to get service, actually want what we all have. They want a better mobile app. And these banks, the fancy Swiss private banks that you might all know from the movies, they didn't invest in good mobile apps because they were spending money on their private bankers, right? And again, the efficiency that comes from AI, particularly in the software development space, allows those banks to provide the level of servicing that we have all become used to. And the reason that this is happening is because in this customer segment, you have in the next 10 or 15 years, a massive generational transfer of wealth from people in the silent generation, the baby boomer generation, towards Gen X and later, right, who are inheriting their family's wealth. And those people are used to this experience. So they want that, right? But you have this interesting trend that's emerging around talking to a system, right? Being able to communicate with a system. Does anyone know who said this? Anyone in the room have an idea who made this statement? You can maybe take a guess, given the theme of the conference. So this was Grace Hopper talking about programming languages, right? Moving from machine code towards higher level languages like COBOL and Fortran, right? The legacy that we now deal with today. And this is kind of what's happening now, right? We're figuring out how to talk to our computer systems in human language. And of course, not just English, but in many, many languages. And that's really one of the big jumps forward that we've had with AI, the ability to move from, let's say, a Western-centric view of the world in terms of interacting with systems to a much more inclusive view of the world. So let's talk about some concrete examples. This is a real photo now from somewhere in the 1970s, and this is what people used to do when they needed a loan from the bank or they needed investment advice. You had a banker, probably a man in his 50s or 60s, wearing a grey suit, very serious, and a very nervous couple probably coming in and telling someone that they don't know very well everything about their personal situation and about how much money they have and how much they earn and so on. It's a very uncomfortable experience, right? And most of us don't want to do that anymore. We want to be able to go into these conversations with surety about the fact that we will get approved for a loan, or if we won't, we would like to understand why. So we would much rather get coaching about our financial situation from this guy, right? Someone who's friendly, someone who gives good advice, someone who's AI generated in this case, right? And this is what we try to do with enabling AI products in our banking software for customers. So one of the areas that we focus on quite heavily at the moment is something we call financial coach. And the idea of a financial coach is to help you understand where you are in your financial journey as you move from being a child who's maybe got an account set up by their parents and works in a family banking context, to being a student, to starting work, maybe eventually buying a home, and then planning for your retirement. And at all of these stages, you need to understand different things about your financial health. Now, that's quite straightforward to do if you have a lot of money and you have a personal banker who's on WhatsApp, right? But if you're a regular customer of the bank like me, then you need to interact with the systems to understand how this works. And the level of detail and the level of personalization that we can give in coaching to people is much more significant now that we can bring AI into the mix, right? We can understand an entire customer base of the bank or of many banks or of an entire population. We can then look at every individual's personal circumstances without necessarily having to talk to them, without them having to meet with a banker, and give them advice. You should switch to this type of debit card or this type of credit card. You should pay down this loan more quickly and pay that loan less quickly, right? Or if you're looking for a home loan, you should maybe do it over 20 years or 30 years, depending on your personal circumstances. All of these things, this level of personalization, this level of detail is now possible, and it brings that level of financial coaching and advice to a much wider population. People who are starting out in their working life, people who are maybe thinking of starting a small business, perhaps someone trying to put their children into university for the first time in their family. This level of personalization and advice is creating opportunities for people all around the world. The other thing we can use AI for is to save our customers from humans. So if you work in a bank for any amount of time, like in any industry, if you work in any company, you start to pick up the jargon, the terminology, right? The acronyms that are used inside the bank or inside your company, and you start to talk in that way to customers. And for some customers, it can be very confusing. Like this person on the left who's saying that you need to adjust the APR on your variable mortgage. Most customers wouldn't know what that means. And AI can take that perfectly correct language and translate it into something that's much more human and understandable for an end customer. So this is another fantastic use where we see our systems can save ourselves from other humans, right, that have become used to working in a certain way, and again can do it at a scale that was not possible beforehand. The other area that's emerging is agentic workflows, right? So agents or AI systems talking to each other and completing tasks fully. And this is a very interesting area because it opens up, again, a lot of opportunities for being able to do much more than we were able to do in the past. It also comes with a huge amount of risk, and it also comes with a huge amount of concern and risk that customers stop trusting a process. If you ask a bot to find a new pair of shoes from a shopping website for you, you can maybe give it some information and it might buy the shoes for you. It chooses the website, chooses the particular shoes, and they get delivered to your door. And that's kind of a low trust transaction because you can always return the shoes if you don't like them, right? Even when we buy our own shoes and we don't like them, we'll just throw them in the return bag, stick the label on, and send them back. If you've got an agent working on your behalf to book a holiday that stops in 5 or 6 different cities, or to transfer money between your current account and your loan account, you want it to get that job 100% correct. Right? So I think it's very important as technologists when we're designing these systems that we always remember that either side of those agents is a human, right? Whether it's the end customer or it's an employee of the bank, or maybe in the end, it's only the board of directors of the bank that are left employed, right? If agents are doing all of our work. there's still humans either side of the process. And so those systems that we designed must account for the needs of the people. Otherwise, they're not serving a true purpose. And so how do we do this? This is, I think, a fairly common high-level view of what AI means. LLMs obviously have made a huge dent in our perception of AI in the last couple of years. In the last year or so, we've talked more and more about AI agents, and we have many emerging frameworks to help us build AI systems. And of course, we have a tsunami of LinkedIn posts about AI that we're all having to deal with. And then the reality under the water of the iceberg of AI are all of these things that we have to take care of, making sure that our AI systems behave well, that they only connect to the things that we want to have them connect to, that we can orchestrate them safely so that they do the work that we want and not the work that we don't want, that we have guardrails in place so that we make sure that an agent who's giving financial advice to a customer isn't hallucinating and giving completely incorrect information about what that person should do with their money. Having good observability and privacy controls is also essential, because these are systems that we're not used to working with. They're not deterministic. So for us as technologists, we also have to build our own trust in the behavior of these systems. And if we can't understand and if we can't explain how they're working, we also won't be able to do that to our customers, to a regulator, to our compliance team, and so on. We're also applying this to the way that we do software development. So my team is responsible for implementing the Backbase product with all of the banks that we work with around the world. We do millions and millions of hours of custom software development for banks around the world. And just as I described with those banking personas earlier, we also looked at how these people do work. So we didn't just buy them a GitHub Copilot license or a Cursor license and say, guys, go for it, right? We gave them all of those tools, but then we said, how does this team produce software? How does work flow from one end of the system to the other? And of course, the number one challenge is also always deciding what you're going to build, specifying it, right? So we started working on a process that helps a business analyst and a product manager and then a solution architect define what we're going to build in a very structured way using assistants that generate all of the artifacts that get passed to a developer, and then eventually hand it off to a developer who will use coding assistants to read those specifications to produce software that will get reviewed by a human and so on. So I think this is a very important perspective to have on the way that you bring tools to your own work, that you think about the entire system in which work gets done and not just your task within it. Remember, as a developer, that coding is probably about 10% of the job that you'll do in your lifetime, right? And the rest of it is figuring out what you have to build. And so what about all of us? In the news, you've also been told in the last couple of years that your jobs are going to go away, that we won't need software developers anymore, right? And maybe it feels like this, that there's a steam train charging towards you, threatening your career and your profession and your passion, perhaps. And I want you to think about this steam train in a different way. This represents the steam train of the 1800s, where coal was being burnt very inefficiently, and then a new steam engine model promised that coal would be burnt much more efficiently. And so we would need less coal and fewer steam trains to do the work of the rail network of the industrial age in the 1800s. What actually happened then was that because the steam train became more efficient, the demand for its service went up. Goods could be transported over greater distances. People could travel over greater distances because the price went down because of the gain in efficiency. And the same is going to happen, my bet, in software development. This is something that's known, well, you can't see it, unfortunately, the Jevons paradox, Jevons. Look this up on Wikipedia. And this describes exactly how this occurs in systems that you make more efficient that eventually cause an increase in demand. All of the software projects that we've worked on for many years that finish without being done are going to get done. All of those requirements that were pushed down on the backlog as low priority, all of those features for customers that were considered low value, that are maybe in markets that you wouldn't normally try and serve, those are the things that will get built because of the efficiency gains we've found in software development through AI. I hope you take that on and take that back to your teams and see it as an opportunity to deliver better solutions and more far-reaching solutions for your customers than just as a way of gaining efficiency and saving cost. Thank you.